This is my SAE. These are a couple pictures I took. These are a lot of our plants that we grow. My SAE is a hydroponics farm. Well, my current SAE is a hydroponics farm in South Windsor called Ag Revolution. We grow microgreens out of these little cups now. We used to grow in trays, which is why they go on for so long. So you've got all those. And here you've got amaranth. This is daikon radish. That's also daikon radish and amaranth. They are just at different stages. So my first SAE for the first 2-3 years of high school, I did this kind of yard work around my house. I made a new garden in my backyard, which is this right here. I just kind of spray painted the grass a little bit and dug up that section. I did a whole bunch of different things. I used to mow the lawn, weed whack it. I mean, I still do, but I also weeded the garden. I'm working on a tractor. It's not really there yet, but I want to get it working. And then I also pulled out a whole bunch of hedges all along my house in the front. A lot of the rewards and challenges, I like seeing like kind of the whole yard come together and how it all looked in the end. I worked on the front garden where we had rose bushes. I kind of brought all those back and then they died again because snow plows. But then the challenges a lot was the maintenance of the lawnmower, because for a while we had a really, really awful one with terrible compression. But no, according to Dad, there was nothing wrong with it. My current SAE goal, well, I guess at the time, my current SAE goal was to keep up with the lawn and make sure everything is in working order and to keep pests out of the garden, because for a while I had a lot of problems with bees and beetles. They were destroying everything. And then I also, at some point I do want to make that tractor operate properly. I never actually managed to get that done. It should be relatively easy though. It's just a solenoid that's shot as far as I know. And then my lawn's pretty green. I did a pretty good job doing that. So I also did finish the garden in the backyard, and then it died because the hooligans decided to dump hot ash. So this is Ag Revolution. This is the hydroponic farm I work for in South Windsor now. There, a lot of the experiences I picked up, I did a lot of plumbing, a lot of electrical work, and right here is a picture of the electrical work I did on a rack that I built. I actually spent most of my summer was working on that rack. I don't know if you came in when it was done or if it was in the middle of it, but I had it set up. I don't know if we had the electrical done, but now we have lights on all 4 racks that turns on. I've got plumbing on the bottom 2 racks, and that all worked perfectly fine. Then another thing I did was salesmanship, which these 2 pictures here are from the Big E. And as you can clearly see, I'm selling a woman something that she does not want, which I was actually selling these things right here, which are microgreen kits. We sold them for $3 a piece at the Big E. Here I've got broccoli, cabbage, and I think radish. Yeah, daikon radish. But they're really simple kits that you grow. You just kind of take the lid off, you spray them, they're easy to grow. You put them by a windowsill, 2 weeks, they're good to go. Another things I did was I learned quite a bit about hydroponics. I built 2 of my own systems, and we're working on a 3rd one right now that's specific to germinating the plants, because we learned actually that in order for microgreens to do the best, you actually, while they're germinating in the beginning and they're just trying to grow and sprout into little small plants, you want to keep them in the dark for as long as possible, because they'll get a lot of height. And then as soon as they're about 5 or 6 days for everything except for the radish is when you can take them into the light, and that's when they start to get their flavor and they start to green up, and that's when they really start to look good. And the radish is usually like 3 to 4 days, and after they're all ready, you just cut them down, you harvest them, you can eat the whole thing, the stem and all. I got a lot of people skills, and I met this guy right here. This is Akira. He's Richard's son. That's funny. I worked with him all summer long. These are some of the pictures of the things I've actually done for the entirety of the summer. Right here is actually just before the Big E when I was making the kits. I had to make about 1,000 of these. So basically the little cups, all we did was I took a solder iron. I can't really see. but they poked little holes in them with a solder iron and melted them, so that way they have drainage. And then in the lids, I did a few holes, so that way it's got a little bit of airflow in it, so you don't have to worry about mold building up. And here I was just measuring out how much seed goes into it, because some seeds are larger than others and some are smaller. So you obviously don't want to put the same weight of seed in the entire thing, because otherwise you're just wasting seed. Right here is that rack that I had before that I showed you. This is the bottom level. In this picture, so our reservoir for this rack actually broke. So I have a smaller reservoir underneath this, which is why I have a rubber tubing running up to here, because that would just flood the tray and then it'd all flow back in through here. But I'm holding right there because I took painter's tape and I slapped it on the side of the tube because it stayed there, but Richard said it's probably best that we don't have that in a picture. These are just some of the things we did at the Big E. We were in the State Building, in the Connecticut State Building, selling our microgreens in the agriculture booth. This right here is a picture from when we were at the South Windsor Farmers Market. We were selling just our microgreens before we started doing these cups here. We used to just have just the greens, and we cut them out of a tray and we keep them in a little clamshell, kind of similar to what you get like blueberries are in at the grocery store. Right here is me maintaining our strawberries. Right now, our two big crops are the microgreens and the strawberries. During the summer, we had a lot of tomatoes. I'll get to that later, but here I'm just watering, and I'm also pruning the runners off of the strawberries because those are everywhere. They're ridiculously out of hand. But this is, so here's a little meat grinder that we actually grind up our media in, and inside each and every one of these kits, there's actually a little bit of media. It kind of looks like dirt, but it's actually a mix of peat moss and a polymer, so that way it's a very water absorbent polymer, so it keeps the water or the media very wet, so you don't have to worry about it really drying out. But it also makes it very hard to make these kits because we have to dry these out completely in order to make sure that they the seeds don't germinate, because as soon as they get water, that's when they're going to start growing. Here is when we just started growing out of these cups. We were growing in small little trays that we used to actually grow our microgreens in, but we put them inside of one of our bigger black trays, which holds 8 or 32 of these kits. And this is the very first hydroponic system I built. It's a very simple system. There's 2 levels to it. It's all got this little elbow joint right here for a valve, and you just turn that on and off depending on what row you're trying to water. And it's just got a pump and a reservoir underneath. And here I was making the nutrient mixture for the strawberries, which is just magnesium. It's a calcium magnesium solution, as well as just the general fruiting powder that we add in for fertilizer. But some of the rewards and challenges of this SAE was I really enjoyed watching these plants grow, because they become, it's very cool to kind of watch them grow and know that this is something that I made. They taste very good. I enjoyed eating them, especially at the Big E. I got a soup and I put them in there and made the soup so much better. But I enjoyed working with people quite a bit, actually. I liked working with Akira, and I enjoyed working with Richard all summer long. Another thing was learning about a side of agriculture that isn't really as well known, because a lot of people don't know a lot about hydroponic farming, which, to be honest, I think it's the more efficient way to farm. You just go up instead of out, so we've got endless amount of space up, so why not grow up? A lot of the challenges was scheduling, because I worked at Six Flags all summer long, so very tight schedule every day of the week. The temperature in the building, no ventilation, none at all. So in the summer, it's 135 degrees, and in the winter, it is -27. We had a lot of issues with germination. In particular, it was our sorrel, purslane, basil, and sunflower. We just didn't have a lot of success germinating those, and whether that was because the temperature wasn't right, we weren't watering right, or they were just old seeds, we're not really sure. It's something we're going to explore in the future. Some things I just really had no idea what I was doing, and I just kind of winged it. And it gets me pretty far most of the time, so I figured, why not? So I went into things blind a lot. And it also takes up a lot of time, and it's a lot of tedious work. Like, I have to grind media a lot. When I'm grinding the media, it takes absolutely forever. I just kind of put in headphones, and I'm usually going for 2 hours, just kind of throwing it in a little bit. And our meat grinder is kind of on its way out, so it jams a lot. So these are our strawberries and our tomatoes. During the summer, our tomatoes were actually one of our main focuses, and we learned quite a bit about the tomatoes. I think Miss Leach saw them. They were a jungle. They grew really tall, which was a problem that we had to try and work out, because we were having these insanely tall tomato plants, but we weren't really getting good fruits. They were kind of leathery, and they didn't really have that tomato taste to them. They were just really watery, and the skin was thick and leathery. But these lights here are actually, me and Richard spent 2 or 3 weeks actually researching different light spectrums, and we found that tomatoes actually enjoy a more red light. So we found these light bars and tested them underneath one of our photosensors, and found that that's actually got almost the perfect wavelength of what we want to grow. So we use those to grow them here. And this netting is supposed to hold up the tomatoes because they got so heavy they started falling over. We had the strawberries during the summer. The problem is they just weren't doing well, so we only had a few. But eventually we actually got them started, and they're actually doing very well now. I think in total we've got 8 trays of 8. So we have all of these, which is this is our calcium magnesium, and this is the all-in-one grow solution I was talking about that we add into the water. And we mix those in, and it's very simple on that. Oh. But now this right here is me taking care of the strawberries again. And these are our fly papers, because somehow a gnat got in, and it's just, those things multiply like crazy, and I don't know where they're coming from. But we put these fly papers in, and about every month we have to swap them out. The current and future goals, my current goal is to be able to further grow and eventually be able to profit off of our microgreens through some of the work we have. And right now we are working with a teacher in the middle school named Julia Porter, and she is running a club, and it's like an entrepreneurship club trying to teach kids to be able to run their own business and sell their own microgreens and things like that. And currently we are selling our kits to them, and eventually we're hoping to be able to actually turn a full profit off of them. And we're going to get there soon, hopefully. And my future goal is to hopefully one day be able to manage a full staff of people. We haven't gotten there yet. But we're almost there. And so we only really have one customer currently, and it's just Miss Porter. So we've got these kits, but they're going pretty quickly. That club, I go there Wednesdays, the first and the third Wednesday of every month, and we just go in there, we check it out. We actually set up a rack for her microgreens. It's just similar to what we used to grow in. It's just a one-level rack where they fit 32 microgreens in, and it's the same as these kits here. Me and Richard set that up on a Tuesday a couple weeks ago. But here is the more of the plumbing work that I did on that rack I was talking about earlier. This here is the drainage side, and this is the intake side. So down here, there's usually a 100-gallon reservoir, but me and one of the guys who works there, Ron, we dropped it, and it turns out PLA doesn't hold up, and it shattered. But we had it runs off of a bilge pump. It runs into this right here, which is just a union. You screw it on and off. If when you want to drain the tank, it turns out 2 people can't carry 100 gallons of water, so I'm sure we figured that out. But we had to pump all the water out, so we just connected to a garden hose, and having this joint right here be able to screw on and off and not cementing it makes it perfect and really easy to do that. So we just pump it all outside. And the problem is, though, this rack is kind of on the complete opposite side of the door, so the hose runs really far. Here's the drainage side right here. It's meant for 4 trays to go all the way across, which is why we've got 1, 2, 3, 4 holes all the way down. And then each tray has a small little joint just like this right at the end, and that just runs into the pipe, and it drains all through the bottom right here, which runs into a reservoir. And we filter that with just to get big sediments out, so we don't have to worry about any seeds staying in there and germinating or decomposing and making mold. And we just take that bag out and we clean it every once in a while. So here are some of my FFA experiences. National convention was a pretty significant one. This was from the 2019 National Convention when President Trump gave a speech, and we didn't get to see there. Poor Miss LaFlamme had to wait in line for like 2 hours to get tickets for it. But instead, we kind of just watched Air Force One take off and land, and we saw the motorcade drive out. That was pretty cool. This is the pilot on the way back from Baltimore to Bradley. I took a picture with him. He was pretty cool. And Joey decided that it was a grand idea to bring a Connecticut flag, so everybody would know that we were Connecticut. And we were very obnoxious with that flag. Everywhere we went, we waved it around. So people know where Connecticut was. But this was also from 2019. This is from this year, actually, in the hotel room. Perfectly sums up the entirety of our trip, where, instead of asking one of the other rooms, hey, do you guys want to get up at 5 in the morning and go to Poultry to go sit in a hotel? Oh, the boys want to go. So this is Ezra in the bed next to me, all groggy, just barely waking up. And that night of the Poultry CDE, our chapter on the other side of us was making a lot of noise, and we finally got them to quiet down. Turns out on the other side of us, they were also making a lot of noise. So naturally, I got mad at midnight and banged my fist into the wall in similar fashion to what my dad used to do to me and my brother. And then they knocked back and said, sorry. So I was like, oh, geez, now I kind of feel bad. So at one point in the morning when we got up, we left a note underneath their door, and they wrote back to us, and now we're all friends. This is a statue of, I think it's the Civil War and like the Gulf War or something like that. I don't know, it's some statue of all of the people who were from Indiana in the Navy and I think in the Army. But then I've also got a lot of experiences like state convention. I've only ever been to one of them, which was last year. But if I didn't go to that one, I probably wouldn't have the SAE I have right now, because that's where I met Richard. He was doing like a whole trade show there, and that's pretty neat. But then just overall, my time in classes, like this foul demon holding my Uno card hostage and demanding chocolate for it. But I've had a lot of fun experiences overall, and I think it's really created who I was today, just through ag, so very thankful for it, and that's about it. Any questions?